T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition and liftoff.
So good morning, welcome. We didn't realize we were going to be back on so quickly. We had a late night last night with the Starship launch. This is the Starlink 17 launch, a batch of 60 satellites for Starlink mega constellation, SpaceX's project for space-based internet communication system. We'll be watching this live together. There's a launch in about 2 minutes time. So let's listen in to SpaceX and Mission Control.
Has completed on the second stage, and that will wrap up propellant loading for the entire vehicle for today's mission.
Stage 2 LOX load complete.
And there is that call out. You can start to hear some hissing and notice some white clouds around Falcon 9. That is normal for us at this stage in the countdown. We are venting liquid oxygen through the transport erector lines, and we'll continue to do so all the way down until T0.
Falcon 9's in startup.
We are in startup. Both stages are now beginning to pressurize for launch. In a few seconds here, we should hear the launch director give the final go for launch.
Falcon 9, Starlink, LD's go for launch.
And there's the final go for launch. Let's listen in to terminal count and watch as Falcon 9 takes our stack of Starlink satellites into orbit.
T-minus 30 seconds.
You're watching the live stream of Social Command's space events. Thanks for joining us this morning.
T-minus 15 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition.
Vehicle is pitching downrange.
Stage 1 chamber pressure is nominal.
T plus 40 seconds into flight. It is dark, but we can definitely hear Falcon 9. We have successfully lifted off from pad 39A at Kennedy Space Center, carrying our stack of Starlink satellites into orbit. Right now, we're currently throttling down the engines in preparation for max Q. That is the period of maximum aerodynamic pressure, where we'll experience the largest structural load on the vehicle during ascent. So slowing the vehicle down helps during this period.
Not actually much to see this morning.
Max Q.
And there is the call out for max Q. We've just passed the period of maximum aerodynamic pressure on Falcon 9. In about a minute, we have 3 events happening back to back. First up is main engine cutoff, also known as MECO. This is where all 9 Merlin engines on the first stage will shut off to slow the vehicle down in preparation for the second event, which is stage separation. During stage separation, the first and second stage will separate from one another, with the first stage starting to make its way back to Earth for a landing attempt on our drone ship, while the second stage continues its journey with the third event, Second Engine Start 1, also known as SES-1. During Second Engine Start 1, this is where we'll light the Merlin vacuum engine on the second stage and propel the second stage along with the Starlink satellites into orbit. The first event, MECO, should be happening in about 25 seconds. And there's an animation of where Falcon 9 is currently at, just heading east from the coast of Florida.
Good morning, Paloma.
MECO.
Stage separation confirmed.
INVAC ignition.
And you saw the visuals on screen. The first stage separated from the second stage, making its way back to Earth. And we have a beautiful startup of the Merlin vacuum engine on the second stage. Coming up in a few seconds here is fairing deploy.
Fairing separation confirmed.
And off goes the fairing halves, exposing the batch of Starlink satellites on top of the second stage. As a reminder, we will be attempting to recover the fairing halves today with our recovery ships Go Searcher and Go Navigator.
Now, after that beautiful launch that we just barely couldn't see, stage 2 heads towards its targeted drop-off orbit. Stage 1 is going to execute 2 burns in order to make its way back down to Earth. The first is the entry burn, where 3 of the M1D engines will reignite, and this will help slow the stage down as it re-enters the upper part of the Earth's atmosphere. The second burn is the landing burn. Now, this is a single engine burn that will bring the vehicle speed down rapidly in order to land on our drone ship, Of Course I Still Love You.
Acquisition of signal Bermuda.
You can see in that video there that our second stage is looking good. Its nozzle is glowing from that burn that it's currently in. And again, our second stage is carrying our 60 Starlink satellites to LEO, or low Earth orbit. That's about 550 kilometers above the surface of the Earth. For reference, most satellites are actually in GEO, or geostationary orbit, which is over 1,000 kilometers above the surface of the Earth. And the reason that we have our Starlink satellites in this lower orbit is that it reduces the round trip time that it takes for data to travel between the user and the satellite, reducing what is known as latency and improving performance in activities like video calls and online gaming. And again, you can't quite see the first stage, but it is coasting down, getting ready for the start of entry burn in about 40 seconds here. It is coasting using its 4 hypersonic grid fins and the occasional burst of nitrogen gas from its attitude control system. Again, if you're just joining us, we had a successful liftoff. Our first stage is returning, getting ready for its entry burn in 10 seconds here. And then our second stage is
FTS is safed.
looking good with our Starlink satellites.
Stage 1, entry burn startup.
You heard the call out for stage 1 entry burn startup. Again, the entry burn will last about 20 seconds here.
Stage 1, entry burn shutdown.
We've had confirmation of a successful stage 1 entry burn. And if you've been following SpaceX news, this is actually the second landing that we're attempting in the past 12 hours.
Continue to follow nominal trajectories.
The first one being our Starship serial number 10, which successfully landed in South Texas just earlier this afternoon. And again, our first stage is designed to be reflown 10 or more times with minimal refurbishment between flights. And this is the 8th flight that this particular first stage has been on. In comparison with Starship, our Starship vehicle is designed to be fully reusable. Second stage continues to look good. And we are less than 30 seconds now from the start of our landing burn.
They're very low on footage tonight, aren't they? They're just showing the one.
Stage 1, landing burn startup.
Are we going to see the landing?
You heard the call out for our start of landing burn. This will be about 20 seconds.
Oh, here we go.
Hopefully we'll get a great video from our drone ship. Of course, I still love you. You can see it there on your left.
Can they nail it twice
Stage 1,
in 24 hours?
deployed.
Obviously. We'll just wait confirmation for that.
Stage 2 FTS is safed.
Looks like we've briefly lost the video. Hopefully we can get a confirmation here soon about whether or not the first stage has successfully landed. Meanwhile, second stage is still looking good. We did just have confirmation of our successful stage 1 landing.
Well done,
This will mark
SpaceX.
Our 75th successful recovery of an orbital class rocket, the 8th recovery of this particular booster, and our second landing in the past 12 hours. Again, this is the second time that we've recovered a booster for the 8th time. And in just a few seconds here, you're going to hear the call out for, well, we just had a call out for SECO 1, in fact, for our second stage, and a confirmation for a good orbit. And now that stage 2 is going to coast in this orbit for the next 35 minutes or so. And while that happens, we'll take a look at this animation showcasing where we are in the coast phase. And we'll see you back here at T plus 45 minutes for a second stage relight.
So we'll leave that going, and we'll leave the stream on in as well. So all the people we had about 4,900 viewers last night for the Starship launch and landing. Then we went off air, and then 15 minutes later, after the landing, the Starship blew up. We missed that. It was late though. It was, in the UK time, it was like it was getting on to 11:45. So they still class that as a good landing last night, because it nailed it. It did land, even though it was tilted slightly. But what happened was there was a fire, and they tried to use a suppression system on there, and that didn't work. And after about 15-20 minutes, it just rapidly disassembled, as Musk says. So what we'll do, we'll leave this running, and we'll pick this up in about 45 minutes. If you want to stay with us, please do. Leave us on in the background as ever. We're always here. Thanks for joining us. We'll speak to you in a bit.
Expected loss of signal, Bermuda.
So you are watching the deployment of Starlink from SpaceX. The launch has happened. The deployment is happening in about 45 minutes. We'll be staying online till then.
Expected loss of signal to Finland. Acquisition of signal Goonhilly. Expected loss of signal, Goon Heli. Acquisition of signal reef.
Welcome back to the webcast for Starlink Mission 20. If you're just joining us, we had successful liftoff at 3:24 a.m. Eastern from Pad 39A in Florida. We had successful stage separation and recovered our first stage for the 8th time on our drone ship. Of course, I Still Love You. We're now finishing up the first coast phase and waiting on the relight of our second stage or second engine start 2. It's going to be a very short 1-second burn of our MVAC engine there on screen. And that's going to be happening in about 10 seconds. And this here is an animation of where we're at and where the second stage is at around the globe. And hopefully we can get footage of the second stage back for that 1 second relight. And just like that, successful startup and shutdown. And now we're waiting for confirmation of a good orbit for the second stage. We don't hear the callouts, but I am hearing from the teams that we do indeed have a good orbit. We have another 20-minute coast phase before we deploy our batch of Starlink satellites into orbit. During this time, the spacecraft will start to spin along its central axis, giving these Starlink satellites the momentum they need to space themselves out over time after they deploy. And while this happens, sit back and enjoy the space jams. We'll see you back here at T plus 1 hour and 4 minutes.
Expected loss of signal, Diego Garcia.
Good deploy orbit insertion.
Welcome back again to our live webcast for SpaceX's 20th Starlink mission. We are close to the end of today's mission, and after an on-time liftoff from Florida at 3:24 a.m., Falcon 9 followed a nominal trajectory. We landed our first stage booster for the 8th time on our drone ship. We also had 2 successful ignitions and shutdowns of the second stage. We're now coming up on deployment of our Starlink satellites. There you can see them on screen right now. That should be coming up in about 20 seconds. Each of these Starlink satellites are approximately 260 kilograms, and they feature a compact design to try to minimize volume.
So we're just waiting for the deployments of the Starlinks. Hello, welcome back.
And during the coast phase, and here comes the Starlink satellites releasing from the second stage.
There they go.
Very, very cool. Shortly, they will deploy their solar arrays, and over the next few days and weeks, they will distance themselves from each other and use their onboard ion thrusters to make their way to their operational orbit at 550 kilometers above the Earth's surface.
And now that brings our webcast to a close. Thank you to the Range and the Federal Aviation Administration for supporting today's mission. If you're interested in being part of our beta program, head over to starlink.com and sign up. Again, thanks for joining us. It's been an exciting day here, and we'll see you next time.
That is us. That's that done then. So some more Starlinks going into orbit. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. It's been an interesting 24 hours with the landing of the Starship and then the explosion, which we haven't talked about this morning, but we'll talk about that on the next one. Anyway, stay tuned to the channels, subscribe, and click the reminder buttons and the bells if you're on YouTube. And that is it. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition.